Hello everybody, I'm Stephanie. Today we're going to be looking at a flow for beginners. A lot of times, especially with the new year, you will have people either starting yoga for the first time or coming back to it again, and they will ask me, where do I start? I don't even know where to begin. So we're just going to take a very gentle little simple flow to kind of introduce you to some of the things that you're going to be starting to notice in your body. So meet me on your mat wherever you're at, and let's get started. What is so special and amazing about yoga? It is just so much more than just an exercise. A lot of people are coming to it for exercise. They're wanting to fix things in their body that they don't like. Maybe it's pain in the low back or in the hips, or they're wanting to bring just a little bit more movement into their life. But once you start to get really into it, you realize it is so much more. Yoga means to yoke, to join. We're wanting to join the whole of our being, our mind with our body, with our soul. We want it to be all one piece and be yoked and joined together. And a lot of times we live two separate, disjointed lives. We live one life in our heads and then one life in our bodies. So we're wanting to join those two things together. And so that begins by becoming aware with what's going on in the body. So we always begin our practices just taking a few moments to come back into the body, because so many times we're living up in the mind and we're not even living here in this moment. We're thinking to the future, to the past, of all the to-do lists and all these different things. So we're wanting to join everything back and just begin to breathe, to slow down, to notice how the body is feeling. So maybe you close your eyes for a moment and just beginning to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. And you're mentally scanning through your body as you're breathing, just checking out where you are for this moment. So looking into the neck, into the shoulders, moving down the spine, on either side of the upper back of the spine, through the middle back, looking down mentally through the lower back as it connects down into the hips, and looking down through the legs to the knees, the ankles, the toes, and then coming back up through the body, looking into the arms, the elbows, the wrists, the fingers. And if you're noticing anything there, if you found anything there that doesn't feel quite right, or you know maybe that's not how it's supposed to feel, bringing love to that. Instead of beating it up and, oh, there goes my bad hip, or, oh, there goes my low back again, and speaking these negative things towards these body parts, realizing that our body and our mind are going to work together. So if we're speaking those hateful things towards them, they're going to continue to hurt. They're going to continue to stay tight. So really sending them some love. So love, 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 really sending them all the good thoughts. And instead of saying, oh, there goes that bad hip, just saying, that hip's a little bit talkative today. I'm going to be extra aware of what's going on there and being loving and not pushing it past the extreme. So as you're beginning to flow, especially at the very beginning of yoga, or if this is your first practice or first time coming back, just becoming very loving towards yourself, very gentle. We're wanting to become the best versions of ourselves, but that also doesn't mean allowing ourselves to stay in ruts. We want to become the best versions of ourselves. So as we begin to breathe, we're going to match movement with breath. So inhale your arms up overhead. Sit a little bit taller, maybe reaching up through the crown of the head. And then exhale, palms come down through heart center. We're going to do that 2 more times. Inhale, arms lift up overhead. This time, keep the length in your spine. And exhale, hands down through heart center. So you don't want to let everything kind of collapse down. You're keeping the length. One more time. Inhale, arms reach up overhead. And exhale, hands down through heart center. Just noticing how you feel. See if that has taken some of the weight, maybe off of the hips, off of the low back. If you spend a lot of time at your desk during the day, you might realize that you're dumping everything down and closing everything off. So really finding that love, opening up the heart, shoulders are rolling back, belly is pulling in, nice, tall, long spine. You might do that a few more times. That may be just all you do, is just find that breath and find that length in the spine. And then we're going to begin to find movement through the spine. So inhale the arms up overhead one more time. Then we're going to find some side bends. Right palm's going to plant down. Left arm is going to reach up and over. So you're stretching out your left side body. And so the first thing that you might notice that's happening is that you're just rocking over to the right side and the entire body's going along. And that's not going to stretch the left side. So if you start to notice your left hip, your left knee are going with you on that journey, gently pressing them back away. Just saying, no, you need to stay there. Keeping length in your left side body, feeling that whole length. And then another thing you might notice is in your right side, are you dumping everything down on the right side to take a deeper side stretch on the left? So slight lift through your right palm. There's all these millions of little things that you're looking at in your body, just becoming aware of the way that you move and maybe breaking some of those bad patterns. We're going to inhale back to center. Other side, left palm plants down, right arm reaches up and over. Gentle press through your right knee, right hip. Slight lift with your left palm. So even in our side bends, back bends, all these different bends, we want to keep length. We want to counteract all the motion of gravity pulling down, down, down on us. And instead, draw all of our energy up, up, up. One more time, both sides. Inhale through center. Exhale, plant your right palm, left arm reaches up and over. You might notice you can go a little bit further this time. Inhale back to center. Exhale, plant your left palm, right arm reaches up and over. Inhale back to center. This time we're going to find a gentle twist. Right hand's going to come behind. Left hand's going to cross to your opposite knee or thigh. Now, depending how long your arms are, you may want to put a block underneath your back right palm to keep length in the spine, or maybe you just stay up on the back fingertips. But inhale, find that length, and instead of pressing into the twist, exhale and begin to just let go, keeping neck in line with spine. So you're feeling it from the very base of the spine. It's not just the shoulders that are twisting, but the entire torso is going over to the right. Letting go. Can you relax your left hip flexor, your left knee? Or are you squeezing them real tight? Just let them relax. You might notice you can find a little bit more depth. Both arms reach back overhead. Inhale to center. Exhale, other side. Left hand comes behind. Right hand crosses opposite knee or thigh, keeping up on the back fingers or a block, keeping length in the spine. Exhale, release. So funny little story. There is a Y where the two sections of the road. We're going to take this back the other way. Inhale through center. Exhale and twist. Where the road is coming together. So one lane's coming from one way, one lane's coming from the other. And so you have to always look over your back left shoulder to see if traffic is coming. Inhale back to center. Exhale and twisting over to the left. And that is my chiropractor's favorite spot, he says, because everybody is always looking over their left shoulder and cranking their neck instead of finding this twist from the base of the spine. Inhale back to center. And exhale, palms come back down through center. So we're just looking at our body and reminding it, this is the way it can move. It can move side to side. It can twist. And then for the last way that our bodies can move, we're going to come to all fours. Now, depending on how your body feels, if you have some talkative knees, we're not going to call them bad knees, you can put some extra padding underneath the knees here if this feels a little rough. But we're aligning here. So both knees are going to be directly underneath both hips. And both wrists are going to be directly underneath both shoulders. So we're going to find some movement here. On your inhale, you're going to drop your belly, lift your hips back, and lift the crown of your head. So you're finding this back bend. Inhaling to cow. On your exhale, reach your spine up towards the ceiling, belly buttons pulling in, and at the same time pressing away from your mat and bringing your chin towards your chest. So coming into cat. Move a little bit between those two shapes. Inhaling to cow, back bend. Exhaling to cat. Pulling the pelvis in. Tipping the pelvis forward. Inhale to cow. And exhale to cat. And then we're going to come back to a neutral spine. And that may be a big thing that you don't even realize where your neutral spine is. So we're finding engagement. We're going to start with the hands. All 5 fingers are spread. So your palms aren't coming together, but all 5 fingers are spread, and you're actually gripping your mat like you're going to drag yourself or claw your way down into the ground. And then you want to make sure that all 4 corners of the palms are down. So if you're able to just lift the top 2 corners, you might have noticed, oh my gosh, my shoulders have shifted back. So you want to make sure that the balance is there so all 4 corners are down. So you really can't lift the top 2 corners without a little bit of struggle. And then transfer a little bit more weight to your thumb and first finger. So the inner arms are rolling in, but at the same time, even though the forearms are rolling in, the shoulders are rolling back. So the insides, the eyes of your elbows are pointing forward, and I'm taking the shoulders away from my ears so they're not coming way up here. And I'm not pressing so far that I'm reaching my spine up towards the ceiling. I'm just activating my arms. So you might do that just a few times, taking some of these scapula push-ups, or you can call them angel push-ups because you're moving those wings in the back. And just really finding the engagement of forearms in and shoulders back. So the arms are really nice and engaged. But everything's not just on the shoulders. The core is pulling in too. So it doesn't matter what is going on down here. It doesn't have to have a little 6-pack. You can have fluff. You can be strong underneath the fluff. So you're pulling in the core, almost like you're wearing a corset. So you're pulling in below the belly button, above the belly button, and both the sides. So everything's pulling in. Careful not to reach the spine up. Instead, you're lengthening, tailbone back, crown forward. Oh my gosh, tabletop. Who knew so much? So we found those movements of our spine. Tuck your toes from here and just hover your knees. So wrists are going to stay right underneath your shoulders. Pull your core in to lift the knees up. You need to really press into the mat, shoulders back as the knees are coming up. Exhale, come back down. Did everything just drop? Can you keep everything engaged as you're lifting and lowering the knees? So the core is still staying pulled in. It's not, pull it in, and then let everything fall out. So everything stays engaged. So nothing is changing in your body except the knees lowering and lifting. And you might begin to notice those wings, the scapula on the back. They're an extension, so they're stretching from side to side. Just taking a little bit of movement there. And then when you feel ready, on your next exhale, reach your hips up and back. You're shifting your weight back so the shoulders are no longer over the wrists. A lot of time you'll see people going into down dog and they're going, oh my gosh, my arms are hurting so bad. My wrists are hurting so bad. I've actually had a couple people this week. They're saying, I'm not quite sure what's going on in my down dog. My shoulders and wrists are hurting. So the first thing you always want to look at is where are you stacking? Are you still stacking? Press back. So you're taking the weight off of your wrists. And then again, check. Are you able to lift the top 2 corners? Maybe you've pressed back a little bit too far. That's going to take some of the weight off the shoulders. And then again, check. Can you press down into the mat, shoulders down? Spread the wings, spread the scapula in the back. Gaze is back between your knees. But even the legs are working. They're working and they're engaged here. So you're not locking out the kneecaps. You're feeling the engagement of the thighs, rolling them back behind you as they're engaged. And then just take a little bit of movement here. Maybe you press the heels down one at a time, taking a nice little stretch for the back of the legs. And we're going to be breaking down down dog in our next video next week. So make sure to look at that one. Even if you think you're a pro, because one of the things that I didn't even realize about my own body is that because I'm hypermobile, and they always tell you press back, press back, press back, I was pressing so far back, I was going way past my shoulders, and I didn't even realize I wasn't really engaging. So from here, from down dog, this is a big pose. Don't think I've got to get my heels down. Maybe you just take a soft bend in the knees and reach the hips back and up. But I want you to notice, where's the energy going? Is it going down? Is everything just kind of dumping down? Or can you lift and draw the energy up and back behind you? Deep, deep bend in your knees. Look up between your hands. Walk your feet to the top of your mat. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I get a little chatty there. So we're hanging out in standing forward fold. And this is another pose where a lot of people, for beginners, you're going to see people like this, hunched over. Because that's the kind of pose that you're taking when you're at your desk. You're pulling everything in. So we're going to take a look at this. So soften your knees and roll all the way back up to standing. So the first thing we want to do is open up the shoulders. So everything's not crunched down. Again, we're opening up the heart, but we're still pulling the core in. Some people think that, oh, I'm back to standing. I can, again, dump all the energy down or just kind of let the hips, the pelvis do what it does normally. But what we're wanting to do is engage the core. So core pulls in. And notice what you're doing with your hips. If you have a natural tendency to kind of stick out your butt and you kind of lead with your heart, you want to pull the core in and the hips down. If you have a tendency to lead from the pelvis, hips forward, that you're kind of pulling everything forward, you're going to pull them back and down. So we're kind of neutralizing all these bad habits that we've done. Open up the heart. Inhale the arms up overhead. Keep the core engaged. On your exhale, deep bend in your knees. Keep the core pulled in. On your way down, the crown is going to go down. So I'm not going down this way and then curling through the spine. I'm reaching down through my crown. Keep bending the knees so that I got this connection here, belly to thighs. And maybe you have shorter arms or your hips are a little bit tighter. Take some blocks or books or something. Bring the floor up to you. So this is as far as you have to go. The shoulders are still rolled back, so they're not rolled forward. Keep that deep bend in your knees, especially if you're beginning. This is going to protect the low back because you might have very, very tight hamstrings here. Inhale, arms are going to reach up and stop right below the kneecaps. Keep your gaze with your spine, so you're not cranking the neck to keep it out in front of you, and then maybe finding even a back bend there. It's not a back bend. Long, long line. Again, can you find the similarities here between halfway lift and your tabletop? So you got a long line going this way and a long line going straight down. Exhale, soften the knees again. Take your standing forward fold. We're just going to hang out here for just a second. So you can keep hands to blocks, or you might grab opposite elbows and really reach down through your crown. You might notice as you grab opposite elbows, that gives a little bit more weight to the arms, and you're just naturally reaching down. Keep that soft bend in your knees, and then just find a little bit of movement. Mentally send your breath back into the hamstrings here. Because a lot of times this is what is so tight that is preventing the forward fold. Move your blocks. You're going to deep bend in your knees until you can plant both your hands. and step one knee back and then the other. So you're back to your table, knees underneath your hips, wrists underneath your shoulders, and then we're going to come into a different version of a plank. So walk your knees back. They're no longer underneath your hips. A lot of times I'll see in class people, I'll say, you can do plank on your knees, and they're like, okay. And their knees go right underneath their hips. That's not plank. This is tabletop. So walk those knees back. So what's going to keep you up instead of going straight down towards the floor? Same thing as your table. Press down into the mat so those arms are engaged. Core is engaged. So you've got this long line going from the crown of your head back all the way down to your knees. From here, bend your elbows. Elbows are going to point back towards your toes. And see how slow you can lower yourself down in one solid piece. Now there's a little bit of controversy on how you should get yourself down, and depending on what the intention is, you might do it differently, but some people, as they're lowering down, you'll see them almost dive. They're dive bombing towards the floor. So the first thing to hit is their head, and then they kind of let everything else collapse down. You want to let everything lower down in one solid piece. So this may be what you really work on. And then you're like, okay, my yoga flow is done today. Because you might notice, oh my gosh, that took a lot of arm strength, a lot of core strength. So we're going to do that one more time. Press yourself back up. Plank on the knees. And then lower yourself down. Good, beautiful. Keep gripping your mat. Don't let go of all 5 fingers, all 4 corners. Drag yourself forward. So you're lengthening the low back. Shoulders roll back. Elbows reach back. Core is still pulling in. Lift up, little cobra. Little back bend. Melt back down. Inhale, press up through tabletop. Curl your toes. And then lift back to down dog. So it's a little bit simpler way to get to your down dog instead of coming all the way, pressing up to plank, and then back to down dog. Even if you're pressing up to plank on the knees, that's going to be just a little bit easier of a version. And just because it's easier does not mean that it's simple. There's a big difference. A lot of times we're looking for the simplest thing. And for different people at different times, it's going to mean something different. So take your down dog again, reaching the energy up and back. Deep bend in your knees, look between your hands, walk your feet to the top of your mat. Do you notice, how are the hamstrings feeling? Have they lengthened a little bit more? If not, take that bend back in your knees. Inhale, halfway lift. Gaze in line with your spine. Exhale, reach back down. Belly button pulls into spine to lift you all the way up, reverse swan dive. And exhale, hands down through heart center. Whew, good job. We're going to come into a tree pose now, but we're only going to take it very gentle. We're not going to take it to something very extreme. So this is just very beginning. So transfer your weight to your right foot. All 5 toes of the right foot are going to grip down into the mat. Soften your kneecaps. You're not locking it out. Lifting again up through the thigh. Transferring the weight. Hands are going to begin at heart center. Can you roll the shoulders back? Open your left knee, open your left hip. The toe is going to stay on the floor. We're just beginning. Just noticing what's going on in your body. As you open your left knee, your left hip, does your right hip go along with it? That may mean that your right hip is really, really tight. Can you gently pull it back so that it's the left hip that's opening up? Maybe you just stay there for a little bit. Or you can take some motion, bringing the knee and hip back front and then opening it to the side again. Take some motion here. Pull the core in. Find your spot that's not going to move, your drishti. And then maybe the toe just stays on the floor. You can play around with lifting the foot. Maybe it comes below the knee. If you start to feel a little bit, whoa, take that toe back down. You're trying to find your edge where you feel solid. So even if that means you've got to come to a wall or to something and hold on for a moment, you can still do tree with a little bit of balance. Core is pulling in, Quad on the right side's working, opening the left knee, the left hip, and maybe one hand comes to heart center. That can still be tree. It's your tree. It doesn't have to be beautiful or the way that you want it to look. Yoga's messy. Yoga's a journey. Yoga is not these pretty poses that we see on Instagram. So other side, left knee, left hip, come back in line, left foot comes down. Transfer your weight to the left side, left quad engages, left toes are gripping, core is pulling in, drishti found, open your right knee, right hip. What happened on that side? Did the left hip go along for the ride? Can you keep it just right knee, right hip opening up? Core is pulling in, lifting, energy is drawing up, 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 up. It's not sinking down, down, down. You can play around with lifting the foot. Maybe you take that wall touch again, or whatever you need to find your balance. Right knee, right hip come back in line, and right foot comes down. Take some gentle movement through the hips, realigning them if you need to. Beautiful work, guys. Inhale, arms reach up overhead. Exhale, swan dive. How are those hamstrings feeling? Deep bend in the knees if you need to. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, reach back down. We're hanging out here again for just a moment. A little more talky talk here. You might notice in my body, or you may not even notice, I have really, really long arms. So a lot of people are very anxious about coming to yoga because they think, I can't get to the floor. And it may have nothing to do with tightness of the hamstrings. It may have to do that you have short arms. So that's all the length of your arms. So you've got to reach even further to get to the floor. So don't worry that yours looks different. Use those blocks if you need to. Maybe the hands stop at the ankles or the mid-shins. What you're looking for is length in the spine. So it's drawing down, 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 down. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, reach back down. Deep, deep bend in your knees. Plant your hands. Step your knees back to your tabletop. So do you remember, where do the knees go in tabletop? Do they go underneath the hip, or do they go back behind it? You've got it. Didn't need to ask. So from here, we're going to take another set of cow and cat. So inhaling to cow, finding that back bend. Exhaling to cat. Maybe one more set. And then walk your hands back to your knees, and at the same time having a seat on your ankles. That may be too much. If it is, get a pillow, block, something to sit on so that you're not sitting directly on the ankles. And just spending a few moments here, feeling the length, the breath that you're sending into the thighs this time. And then whenever you're ready, moving that block, crossing the ankles, and bringing the feet out from underneath you. We're going to take this down onto our backs now. As you're lowering yourself down, though, we're going to begin by bringing the palms to either side of the hips. And instead of pressing down into the mat, can you pull the core in and lift up through the crown until the arms straighten? Shoulders are still rolling back, core is pulled in. And then from here, I'm going to keep this length in my spine. I'm going to lower myself down in one solid piece. So you're walking your feet in, ankles underneath your knees. Knees are as wide as your hips, hands are down by your side. Can you plant your shoulders down also so they're not curled up? Keeping your gaze straight up to the ceiling. On your inhale, lift your hips, lift your core. So you're opening up bridge pose. This is as far as we're going to take it. You can take it deeper, but we're just beginning here. We're just coming back to our practice, back to our body. So we don't want to press it past where it's comfortable. Exhale. Roll back down one vertebrae at a time. We're going to do that same thing again. Inhale, lift the hips, lift the core. We're coming into bridge pose. Can you notice in your body what's going on? Are the knees rocking in? Are the knees rocking out? Can you keep them aligned? Feeling all four corners of the feet down, all 5 toes. Everything's aligned. Roll back down one more time, one vertebrae at a time. Knees come over the hips. You're going to grab right below the kneecaps, but let your belly go soft here. This is another opinion. I'll say it's an opinion because some teachers teach this differently. Whenever you come into wind releasing pose, they'll say, pull the core in. Well, what happens? Let's look at that for a moment. When you pull the core in, what happens? It flattens out the lower back. It slams it in and engages the core. And that's a good thing if you're doing sit-ups or any of this kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you're making this compression in the low back because the core's pulled in, and then we're going to pull in the knees, that's going to make even more compression. That may really, really hurt the low back. And if you guys know anything about me, I already have low back issues. I'm not going to push my edge. So you will hear me a lot of times when we come to this pose, soften the core. Don't slam the low back in. So I'm going to keep that natural little arch in my back, let the belly go soft, and then bringing my knees in, finding some movement here, rocking side to side, massaging out the low back. And then we're going to take a reclining pigeon here. Left foot's going to come down. Right ankle over your left knee. So this is always an option if you're in a class and they say, okay, we're going to pigeon. Flip it on its back. Find your edge here first because what you're wanting to do is square the hips. And when you're on your back, you can feel that the hip points are the same height. You're not usually going to be rocking to one side or the other. You're going to engage the toes. That's going to shorten the shin here to protect the kneecap. And then press away your right knee. You'll feel this stretch on the inner right thigh, on the right hip. Your knee may be here, and that may be as far as you can press, and that is okay. You're finding your edge. But just very gently, maybe you press for a little bit, and then release, and then press it again. So you're opening up this right hip flexor. Ooh, nice little pop there. We're going to do this on the other side. So release. Right foot comes down. Left ankle over your right knee. Engage your toes. Press your left knee away. You might notice, oh, this hip, it's harder. Or, oh, this hip's a little bit easier. Just notice those things. Don't go, oh, there's the good hip. There's the bad hip. We're bringing love into our practice. We still want to be truthful with our love. Noticing where the limitations are in our bodies, but you're still being loving. Even if you're hoping that it gets better or you're claiming that it's going to get better, you still would be okay to keep it where the limitations are with love, if that makes sense. And then release your left foot down. Beautiful. Reach both of your feet down. We're going to take a big stretch here. Arms are going to reach up overhead. Stretch yourself in opposite direction. So I'm going to reach up through the top half of my body and down through the bottom half. It's almost like you're on the rack, but a good version of the rack. And then very gently bend your right knee. Left hand is going to come to your right knee. Right hand's going to come on top. On your exhale, pull it in. Find a little bit more length. What do you notice in your body? Keep your left hand with your right kneecap. Right palm's going to open to the side. I'm grounding down entire arm. So I'm not turning my shoulder up towards the ceiling. I want to let the whole length of my arm come down. And then with my exhale at the same time, I'm going to walk my left hip underneath me and then let my right knee go over to the left. It doesn't have to touch the floor. It can hover. If it's painful for it to hover, maybe you put a block there, or maybe you let it rest on your left palm, or if it's closer to the floor, your left fist. With each exhale, can you let your right shoulder come back closer to the ground? So you're making this big, big belly twist again. but you've walked your left hip underneath, so it's a belly twist and not a hip twist. If you want to take it a little bit further, maybe you take your gaze over to the right. If anything at all feels uncomfortable, you want to be listening to your body, you're being loving, you can keep the gaze just up towards the ceiling. On your next inhale, walking your left hip back out, right knee comes back to the center, and exhale the right leg long. We're going to do this on the other side. So left knee comes in, right hand comes right below your left kneecap, left hand on top. On your exhale, pull it in, compress your left side belly. Your belly's soft though, we're not slamming the back. Keep your right hand with your left knee. Left palm opens to the side, grounding down, shoulder all the way to the arm, to the palm. Walking your right hip underneath you, and then letting your left knee go over to the right. Again, you can put a palm underneath there, you can put a fist, you can put a block, you can let it float. Big, big belly twist, looking to the ceiling or the left palm. And then bring your gaze back to center. Walking your right hip back underneath, left knee comes back, and then left leg goes long. And then I know a lot of people, especially beginners, but not only beginners, even very experienced yogis, they're like, yes, I'm done. No, you are not done. You want to balance out all of this movement in your body, all of this movement that's been going on in your mind, because yoga is a lot. You're having to be present, you're having to look at your body and think about this and da-da-da-da-da. You've probably heard that old saying, or if you haven't, if you're bored in yoga, you're not doing it right. So we're ending with some stillness, with Shavasana. This is not a nap time. This is a conscious rest. So I'm coming back to my natural breath. I can continue to breathe in and out through the nose, or maybe in through the nose and out through the mouth. But I'm mentally, again, going through my body, scanning it, seeing how things are feeling. Being okay with whatever's going on. You might even not notice any difference. It takes time. You might come back to this practice daily for a while before you notice a change in your body. Or maybe the change is in your thought patterns in your mind, and that's what's releasing the body. Deep thoughts. So just letting the body melt down. Being still here. Stillness is hard. We're bringing love into our stillness also. You can pause the video here, and you're welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. I know that life does have demands, so whenever you're ready, very gently bending your knees, rolling over onto one side or the other, and then using your palm to press yourself back up to a seated position. And then we're going to take one more. Inhale through the nose as the arms reach up overhead. And exhale as palms come down through heart center. So bringing that love back into yourself. Grateful to yourself for everything that you're able to do. That you can breathe, that you can move, that you had time to join me today. For all those things. But also grateful to yourself for the things that you can't do. Even in those, you can say no, you can take things in your own way, but you're beginning to listen to your body. Thank you so much for being a part of this beginner flow today. If you have any questions, any comments, any concerns, shoot me a message below. I'd love to chat with you. Thank you so much. Blessings and namaste.